everyone. Hey. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. I feel like I should have a walk up here on stage and I should be doing some sort of cooking demonstration in the middle of all of this. So please raise your hand at any time if you have any problems hearing me. So my name is Suzanne Fry. And along with every Googler that you've met here today and every Googler behind the scenes, I'm responsible alongside them for ensuring the trust of Google Cloud. Now, have you ever suffered a grave injustice like this? You're hungry, you go out for lunch, and you order a foot-long sub, but it comes in a little shorter than you expected. You feel a bit shortchanged, right? What you expected is not what you experienced. And that alignment between expectations and experiences is fundamental to the phenomenon of trust. It sits at the very foundation of it all. If you're going to trust someone, what you expect should be what you experience positively and consistently. But trust is not that simple. If it were that simple, we could always just rely on our engineering and say, let's just engineer trust into everything. But it's more nuanced than that. And so I'm going to share a story I heard Simon Sinek discuss on YouTube. And the story is as follows. It's Friday night, and you need a babysitter. You have two choices. The 16-year-old who lives down the street, and you know the family. The 16-year-old has no experience babysitting. Or you can choose the 32-year-old who just moved into the neighborhood, but has 10 years of babysitting experience. Who do people choose? Well, most people actually choose the 16-year-old. Now, your kids are among your most precious things in your life, and yet you chose the person with less experience. Why? You had insights into that family. You know a bit about how they operate and how they think. Now, some people may say you chose a 16-year-old because they're probably cheaper, fair, but again, we're talking about your kids. And here's another scenario. You're about to step into your first self-driving car, and you're given two choices. One with a steering wheel and one without. Which one do you choose? Most people choose the one with the steering wheel, even though all the data says that on average, the computer is going to make a better decision than the human. Now, why do you do that? It's about agency. It's about being in control. We are fundamentally engineered as human beings to want that sense of control, especially with things that are new to us. Now, these phenomena of trust, right, they're not actually new. Trust is not a new concept in cyberspace. There have been analogs for a very long time. And I'll riff off Dan Ariely, who's a behavioral economist, who talks about this a lot. Like, why do we clink glasses and say cheers or to your health, even though it's not to your health? Just letting you know. Why do we do this? Well, it's actually based on a very old ritual to actually mix the liquids to be sure that they're not poisoned, that the chalices are not poisoned. Well, in cyberspace, how do we do this? Well, we do antivirus scanning. We do phishing detection. We exploit these things in sandboxes, and we try to be sure that what's inbound is not poisoned, per se. Right? Here's another analog, the handshake, another ancient ritual that we've actually ported into cyberspace. Handshakes were intended to show, I'm not bringing a weapon to this fight, or I'm not bringing a weapon to this discussion, right? And today, we have TLS, we have TCP/IP, we have our Titan security keys. These things are literally called handshakes, and there's a reason. Again, they're to protect you, and to protect that the exchange you're about to have is safe and secure. Now, trust, right? We would not have 7, or maybe I should say 8 products with 1 billion users each. Actually, Drive was just announced today is going to hit 1 billion users in just the next few weeks. We would not have this kind of following and this kind of trust from the world if we hadn't done a very solid job engineering trust into everything we do. Right? And we've built on top of that. Google Cloud, what we have today, is built on the very sort of products that we built for consumers, but fortified for the enterprise. And we're going to talk about all the trust level things we've injected as well to make enterprises comfortable moving to the cloud. Now, our mission, the mission of the people, the Googlers you see here, we all share it, is to make Google Cloud the most trusted place for user data, period. We want you to be comfortable, and we want you to know what we're doing with your data at any given time. And so we think about how do we secure trust in a cloud product, and we think about it this way. Going back to what we've discussed so far, your expectations should match your experience. That's fundamental. And you should be able to verify what we say. You should have transparency into how we operate, and you should have the controls that make you comfortable operating in the cloud. So, expectations matching experiences. We are an engineering company at our core, and we are going to focus on making the engineering rock solid from the very foundation. And we fundamentally, from day one, have believed that cloud is just a better technology. It's a better technology for security, it's a better technology for agility and innovation. One single platform version that's auto-updated. It's pushed out one place and goes to many. And it gives you economies of scale that are absolutely unprecedented. And we have shown a slide like this similarly for decades at Google now, where from day one we invested in rock secure infrastructure. Meaning we built our own servers at a time everyone thought we were crazy. We were purchasing dark fiber when everybody said, why in the world is Google doing this? We were investing in undersea cables and everybody thought we were crazy. But we were the thought leaders, and now everyone else is doing this. And why are they doing it? Are they doing it just to copy us? Are they doing it for a low cost of ownership? They're doing it because it puts us in charge of making sure that everything is secure. It makes sure that we can then respond quickly, and we're not waiting for another vendor to send us a patch to the BIOS next quarter. We can tap on the shoulder of a fellow Googler and say, there's a bug, we need to fix it, it's P0, get it fixed now, and we roll it out immediately. So from the very, very bottom of the stack all the way out to the endpoints, you think about Pixelbooks and Chromebooks, Android devices, et cetera, we have taken control of the security narrative, and we can therefore not rely on the vendor in the middle to solve our problems. So I'm going to zoom in at the most micro of levels and sort of talk about another sort of thought leadership space, which was our Titan chip. Now, what's a trusted or a hardware root of trust? A lot of people don't think about this when they're looking at a provider, but what if you had a malicious insider who actually slipped some new server into the stack, or actually wanted to execute some code that nobody knew about? A hardware root of trust prevents this. It makes sure that every server is verified, the BIOS is verified, the operating system, and every piece of hardware that's operating in our stack is verified. Urs Hosley demonstrated this last year. If you might recall, he took his earring out and he showed the Titan chip. And we have continued to innovate in this space and expand it into our infrastructure. And now let's zoom out from the micro to the macro and talk about our cloud infrastructure. Now, lots of people worry about how do I scale to meet Cyber Monday, or how do I scale to ensure that I don't have a denial of service attack? And certainly our infrastructure has been built for both of those purposes. But also, once you're on our network, everything is encrypted in transit and so much more secure than the public internet. And obviously, all of these routes, all of these redundancies, they lead to great agility for your business. And I often say that security comes in two forms at Google. Obviously, it's cybersecurity, but it's also security for your business to adapt and scale. Let's say you're launching a new game, right? Or you're launching a new retail campaign and you have no idea how it's going to go. Well, the capacity that we bring to bear here is unprecedented. In fact, let's talk about some of the numbers. Over 25% of global internet traffic passes through our network. That's 1/4. Just want to make sure folks are doing the math. Every single minute, close to 700,000 pages are scanned for malicious content every single minute. We have over 1 billion accounts that are defended on our infrastructure. Right? All data is encrypted at rest, and I really love the 1.7 times faster than standard cloud network offerings. Please take that home, write it down, remember that. Now, how many folks here are familiar with the Spectre and Meltdown vulnerabilities? Yes, okay. This was pretty unprecedented in the industry. And one of Google's researchers just happened to be flipping through chip manuals on a weekend and started to think about a problem as he was reading through the architecture. He realized there's a fundamental flaw in chip design. What happened next was he spoke to other researchers at Google. We verified it. And we kept it quiet except for within the industry, and we reached out to other folks in the industry and said, hey, there's a problem. We need to fix this, we need to fix it quickly. And this was mid-2017. Across the industry, we worked with everyone to optimize, but what we did that was very different is that we released a fix for this without bringing anyone down. And we did so in a way that was performant. And a month later, which most folks don't know, we released another fix and didn't have to bring anybody down. We have attracted some of the brightest, I would say the brightest, I'm sorry, I don't want to brag, but security researchers and security engineers and engineers writ large at Google who want to work on these kind of problems, who want to be the thought leaders and actually live to protect our users' information. Particularly proud of the work that we did here and all the hard work that actually went into the scene behind the scenes. Now, encryption by default, we've been doing this for a very long time, but it's one thing just to encrypt the data, it's quite another to do what we do, which is basically we shard the data. We blow it up into chunks. Each one of those chunks gets its own key. Each one of those chunks is then wrapped in that key is then wrapped in an encryption key, right? And those keys are rotated routinely. What does this mean on an everyday basis? It means that if someone were to actually get a physical disk, or if someone were to infiltrate our network, their ability to reassemble that information into anything cogent is almost next to nil. And we're very proud of this architecture. It's been in place for a very long time. And it's obviously something that we're out promoting at all times, that all of our users' data is encrypted by default. And that's also in transit, not just at rest. Now, the last year, there's been a 45% increase in data breaches, right? And we all know that these things can be very bad. And it's increasingly difficult for IT to manage these things by themselves. In fact, if we just take the fact that 30% of these data breaches are actually just caused by employees, right? And it's due to a lack of controls. Every employee is now being expected to go to multiple trainings, read multiple documents, understand what the protocol for this, that, and the other thing is. You know what? Everyone's human. And the fact that somebody might actually mess up at some time, you should plan for that, right? And build redundancies. And we've thought about how to engineer that into our infrastructure as well. Patchwork systems on-premise are also super vulnerable to attackers. If you look at the breach history in this past year, you'll see an awful lot of it was due to someone didn't patch system X. Right? And those heterogeneous systems are becoming increasingly vulnerable, super easy for attackers to address. And this is another one of the huge, powerful moments that cloud brings to bear for your business because we eliminate this problem. 91% of phishing attacks, right, start with email. And 66% of malware was also started with email attachments. And 90% of the reported breaches are caused by negligence or extortion or external threats, right? A lack of admin controls really cause problems here. And there's been a 15% increase in ransomware, or 15x, sorry, not percent. Oops, sorry, let me go back here. So, 91% of cyber attacks start with a phishing email. We filter 10 million spam and malicious emails every single minute. We filter out 99.9% of spam, and that remaining 0.1%, Garrick Tubasi this morning in the keynote mentioned that we do an awful lot to try to warn users when things are ambiguous, also to say, wait, caution, before you open this, it might be dangerous. And businesses are hit with ransomware every 40 seconds. That's a very big threat to your business as well. Right? And we protect over 3 billion devices right now, and that number is growing from URLs with malicious content every single day. So please know, right? I started off with talking about the almost 8, soon to be 8 products with 1 billion users each. A lot of people have come to us and said, hey, you started off in this consumer business. Why are you doing enterprise? That consumer business gives us an immense amount of information to use for anomaly detection and prevention and protection for enterprise in a way that no other provider can do. Now, I'm going to riff off of Mark Crandall, who's sitting right here, and say, I could be telling you tons of things. I could be lying to you, right? Why should you believe me? I work at Google, right? Well, I think that's actually a very important point. And so beyond sort of doing the engineering work at the foundation, right, we will also put what we say in writing, and we will commit this to you. Right? Things like our data processing terms. What will we do or not do with your data? Right? What compliance regimes are we obliged to obey for you? We've invested in things like model contract clauses for the EU. We have business associate agreements for HIPAA, FSI, financial services industry audit clauses, right? And FedRAMP commitments. Now, our enterprise data processing terms, as it says here, it's essentially the privacy policy. It commits us to things like making sure that we do not use your data for advertising purposes. This has long been a myth, and I hope everyone is aware that even on the consumer side of Gmail, for example, we turn down content-based scanning for ads purposes. So really important that folks know we are not in the business of advertising in enterprise. Additional data incident notification. What are our obligations? How quickly will we notify you? We have a world-class incident management team across Google that makes sure that we are able to respond to incidents quickly and also make sure that you can stay compliant with your own obligations regarding incidents. Sub-processors, who are we using? And notifications around sub-processors. We make those commitments to you as well, so you are aware. And a whole host of other things. I won't read the deck to you. Right? We take the phrase trust but verify very, very seriously. We have a number of certifications here. Folks should know that in the past year, right, we announced FedRAMP Moderate ATO for both GCP and G Suite was announced in prior years. But we keep adding to this. And we're proud of the fact that in terms of compliance and enterprise level compliance, we're at parity and above with the industry. And certainly in highly regulated businesses like healthcare, financial services, government, and even education, right? There's a number of additional things that we need to bear, and we're fully prepared to do that. We have key logo customers in all of these domains. Hopefully you've heard from or met several of them across the week, and certainly feel free if you're interested in any one of these specific domains to come up and talk to me afterward. Our regulatory engagement. So one thing other people don't think about when they're picking a cloud provider is how adept, how agile, how in the know is the public policy team at your cloud provider. Because legislators are very interested in what's happening with technology. And technology, as everybody knows, is running at the speed of near light. It's super important that your cloud provider has good relationships with the regulatory bodies around the world, and that they're educating individuals about technology. For those of us who are in the industry, some things are very, very obvious that are not obvious to regulators. It's important that you have a strong partnership with those individuals so that you can help them, help you, help all of us advance innovation in the world without slowing things down. And we're proud of all the advanced regulatory engagement that we've been able to achieve to date, and there's a whole lot more to come. Now moving on to the third domain, control. Now, cloud, right, does bring inherent security protection. We talked about the fact that there were a lot more security incidents in the cloud. In fact, 60% fewer, right, are anticipated in cloud-based systems. And under control, right, we put GDPR. Now, GDPR could have said in trust but verify, but we put it in control because really fundamentally that legislation came about because users wanted control over what happens to their data. And we are committed to GDPR compliance at Google. We were among the first to announce our compliance in the cloud, and that's no easy feat for any cloud provider. We worked almost 2 years diligently, and hundreds of engineers in Google Cloud contributed to our compliance with GDPR. And what does GDPR give you? Well, it gives you processing updates, data processing updates. It gives you the ability and right to know that you can take your data with you, right? And 100% export. It gives you new terms around incident notification and a whole host of other things. We are actually proud of that legislation, and we're happy to be compliant with it. We think it's very, very important for users to know that Google Cloud is committed to GDPR compliance. Now, yesterday, we were excited to announce for the first time for G Suite in particular, the ability to store primary data in either the US or the EU. Again, this is a pretty big feat for an all-cloud provider. Sure, if you're going to do an on-premise system, you put some servers in different places and the like, and you do that. But in the cloud, we've always engineered for optimal sort of laydown of the data based on where are you and who is what and all of this stuff. So we invested in data regions because our customers asked us for this degree of control. Now, there's more to come on this front. Stay tuned. GCP, as many folks in this room will probably know, already has mini clusters with lots of opportunities to use things like cloud storage around the world in lots of different locations. I think there's a talk later today. Now, data loss prevention. We talk about employees making mistakes. It's going to happen. Data loss prevention, or DLP as we term it, is available in both GCP and G Suite. On GCP, it's a set of APIs. On G Suite, it's APIs as well as a rules-based engine that you can configure. And this allows you to set up rules like if credit card number don't send or those sorts of things. Very, very typical employee flaws. And there's a whole bunch of rules that come baked into DLP so that you don't have to do a lot of work to get going with data loss prevention. Now, OAuth. OAuth is an open standard for delegated access. If folks don't know what OAuth is, well, just think about, you're often shown these screens that say log in with Google or log in with Facebook or all these other things. That's OAuth. It doesn't require you to re-enter your password. And OAuth has been great for productivity and third-party applications integration and a whole lot of other things. But there are some sketchy OAuth apps out there. So what do you do as an enterprise admin? Because you want to give your employees freedom to use different applications and the like, but you also want to draw some boundaries. Well, OAuth whitelisting lets you do that. And you're going to see a demo of this here at the end, so stay tuned in case you're just so curious about how you go about doing this. I encourage every G Suite user to use OAuth whitelisting. Okay. Users share things. They share things a lot. Drive sharing and domain-wide sharing and protections and things like that have been there for a long time. But how about email, right? We actually haven't done a whole lot of reply warnings on this, and especially with forged email messages or where we think there might be impersonation. We're doing a lot more to put brighter, bolder warnings in front of users around external replies. Today we announced Gmail confidential mode. Now let me be very, very clear what Gmail confidential mode is. This is the ability to set an expiration date on an email. So let's say you just want something to be around for 10 days. You can also revoke a previously sent message, right? So you can say, "I'll pull this back, no longer applicable. There's no longer cupcakes in the kitchen, we're done." And you can also set up a code or password for that email between users. Okay. This has been a long requested feature from our users, and we're excited to announce that today. And that's coming to G Suite here in the coming weeks. Protected team drives. Another thing, users come and go all the time. Joe is on the team, then Joe moves off the team, and Alice comes in, et cetera. Before we had team drives, it was really hard to manage sort of the going and coming of everybody and make sure the right people had access to everything. Now we've added IRM to the team drive as well to prevent downloading, copying, and all of this. It's just another layer of protection on team drives and a continued evolution of that particular feature within your enterprise. Default on mobile management. You're also going to see a demo of this. We have more than 10 million enterprise devices under management with MDM, mobile device management. And again, it supports not just Android and iOS, but other device types as well. It's super simple to use. And that comes back to our pillars of simple, secure, and smart. Everything we do is really engineered and designed around those principles. And yesterday we mentioned the Titan security key. Right? Each year we've been talking about the security key. I think yesterday finally people might have gotten the message about the security keys. This is hardware-based authentication. A lot of people still use those tokens where you generate a number and you type in the number and then you get authenticated as a second factor. Those can actually be phished, they can be sniffed, a man-in-the-middle attack, because you transmit that number as part of the authentication process. With hardware-based authentication and with that key, no numerics are transmitted alike. Your key is authenticated to your device. Right? And I want to emphasize that from 2016 to the present, I'm going to read this to you, no successful G Suite account takeovers using password phishing with security keys. None. If you are not using security keys in your organization, I can't encourage you enough to please adopt security keys as a solution for protection against phishing. So some of the key things we just discussed in the control section are security keys, data loss prevention, and Chromebooks. And we're going to see some demos of some of these things here at the end. But before we go there, I just want to emphasize our commitment to transparency as well. So, transparency into requests. Lots of people ask us, well, what about if the government or law enforcement comes asking for information that's stored in the cloud? First, we want to make it clear to everyone, your data is yours, and we do everything to be sure that if we're allowed to, we can let you know we got this request and we hand that request over to you to deal with. That's not for us to deal with. Now, if we cannot do that, right, then we do publications every quarter about the number and types of requests that we get from governments and law enforcement. And we publish our transparency report. Now for Google Cloud Platform, we have another feature called access transparency. Folks are often concerned. They say, well, wait a minute, how do I know that Googlers aren't looking at my data? How do I know your sub-processors aren't looking at my data? Or if they are looking at my data, I want to be sure they're looking at it for the right reasons. If I have a support call and I need to do debugging or something like that. So with GCP, we announced access transparency this past year. And it shows you the justified reason, every single access that is done, and by whom and where in near real time. Right? And it's surfaced both through APIs on GCP as well as UIs. And some of you, I think it's today, is it Ishai, is the discussion today? All right. We can empower our admins with security intelligence. For both GCP and G Suite, we have insights into transparency of what's happening with your security posture. We have a report and health check, a bunch of dashboards that let you know what's happening. We're bringing anomaly detection to bear, and we also offer system investigation or bulk investigation and cure of events. For the longest time, admins could not actually go in there and say, okay, we did have a phishing email slip through the cracks. It's still sitting out there in everyone's email boxes. What do I do? They'd have to write a lot of scripts. It was really complicated and super convoluted. Now, within a matter of literally less than a minute, you can go in, you can find that email, you can quarantine it and pull it back out of everyone's mailbox. And last but not least, right, Chrome Enterprise. Chromebooks with the browser, the power of the Chrome browser, which brings things like safe browsing and site isolation and a whole bunch of other things to bear. Take the Chrome browser, couple it with a Chromebook, and you're now operating in a thin, lightweight, super secure model with a very thin client and the ability to protect your organization in the cloud. You're no longer dealing with those heavy local operating systems. I won't mention any names. So with that, I want to invite Nina up to the stage. Nina's going to demonstrate for us a number of things. We're going to walk through default on mobile management, advanced anti-phishing, security keys, security center, and what's the other? OAuth, right? Yes. Thank you, Nina. Hey, thank you.
Okay, just allow me a moment to sign in into my demo account. Okay, so today I will show everyone 5 G Suite security tools in action. I hope you will find that they're not only very beneficial to use, but also very easy to manage for admins. The first feature is called Default On Mobile Device Management. What you're looking at here is an admin list of corporate devices or bring your own device, personal devices. Before this feature, employees need to install work profiles on their iOS or Android devices to be able to show up on this list. And sometimes you cannot get everyone to do that, therefore hampering your ability to secure your endpoints. With this feature, basic device management is automatically enabled for every device used. As an admin, you can actually do a lot of actions here. For example, you can wipe a compromised device. You can also see audit events. Now, more than 7 million devices are already using this new feature. Next, I want to show you another feature, which is called Default On Gmail Spam and Phishing Protection. The type of threat on this page, you can see these are admin controls. We essentially brought a lot of really great consumer Gmail features to be able to manage for your whole domain by admins. The type of threats we protect against include encrypted suspicious attachments, links to external images, spoofing, and unauthenticated emails. You can see that all these settings are enabled by default, but admins can change that as well. We have applied machine learning to billions of threat indicators, and we're evolving those models very quickly to identify what could be a phishing attack in the making. With this protection, more than 99.9% business email compromise scenarios are either automatically put into spam folders or flagged with anomaly warnings to your users. Next, I want to talk about two-step verification or two-factor verification. One major risk you consider is account hijacking. Two-step verification is a great way to add extra layer of protection to reduce that risk. And the best way to implement, like Suzanne mentioned, is through hardware keys. So they look like this. And today, I will show you how easy it is for an admin to start a new key reinforcement program in your company, and also how easy it is for your end user to set it up. So as admin, you come to this configuration page. Once you're done with the configuration, it will apply to everyone in your domain. There are a few decisions you need to make on this page. First, when do you want the enforcement to start? I suggest you to set it a little far ahead so that you have enough time to communicate with your employees. And second, sometimes your employees may lose the keys. So you want to allow a grace period for them to be able to still access their work apps while replacing the key. So now you save all your configuration, and your program has started. So now I will pretend to be an employee and show you what that experience is like. I will try to sign in. And I will be asked for my password. OK, now you see the screen. You can see that the date you specified is here, which is your employee will be asked to finish this setup before that date. So now I'm going just to go ahead and register my key. All you need to do is you will be asked password again. And you will plug in this key into your computer if you have a USB port. And you press next. And you will tap your key. That's it. I will say this is key 1. It's all done. Next, I want to show you a new product. It's called G Suite Security Center. G Suite Security Center has a lot of capabilities for admins to be able to control and have visibility into users using apps. So no matter how secure your system is, sometimes the risk comes from your employees, like Susan mentioned. Sometimes people just click on the wrong links. And as an admin, these features help you to discover, investigate, and remediate those risks. I will show you 3 main components here. The first one would be dashboard. Dashboards is a great way for admin to look at a range of key security metrics of the G Suite, of your G Suite domain. You can see this first chart is about file sharing of your drive. And then you have a bunch of Gmail-related signals. You have device activities. You have OAuth logging-related activities here as well. As an admin, look at this chart. I think it's very interesting because I see a spike of external sharing. I can click more to see the report and get some actionable insights here. On this report view, you can see the breakdown of those sharing events. You can even see more important information by looking at those tabs. For example, you can look at what are the top domains these files have been shared with to see if there's anything worth taking action of. Okay. The next feature I want to show you is the investigation tool. Investigation tool is especially great when you know that something is wrong and you want to look into the matter. You will be able to construct a query across multiple data sources and then drill down into the event. Let's suppose that one of your employees told you that another employee is spamming people with an email pretending to be coming from the finance department, and you want to look into this. You're thinking, well, is this user's account got hijacked? How many people got spammed? You definitely want to pull out that email before more people start to ping you. So let's see what you can do here. You go into Gmail log event. You specify the sender to be this potentially suspicious employee account. And you will specify a date range. Okay, now you're going to run the query. Here, you do see a lot of emails sent by the sender, and they have subject submit by end of day to finance. What you can do here is select all of them and do a bulk action to mark them as spam. Once you do that, all these emails will skip the inbox of your employees. There is another really great thing to do here is to pivot to look at a different data source of the information in this table. For example, I want to see more about this particular user. So I move to the user data source. Okay, so here there are more information, and there are even more columns that you can pull up to this chart to further your investigation. The actions you can do here include you can right away suspend this user to prevent further damage in your system. After this investigation, I guess you're probably very keen to prevent future threats of your organization. I want to introduce you to Security Health. Security Health is a place where Google provides you a list of best practice recommendations. Our goal is to help admins to be more familiar with the controls that's available to them. You can see these are all the different recommendations. And then on the right, the green icon marks completion of a best practice, while the gray one marks a suggestion to you. By clicking on it, you can see the detail of this recommendation. For example, for drive sharing, we recommend to limit the domains so that you can lower your data exfiltration risk. You can also click on the title of the item so that it will link you to the admin controls where you can make a change. Okay. Last, I want to show you OAuth whitelisting. With more and more users downloading apps and the bring your own device policy, shadow IT can become a major risk to your organization. You don't want malicious third-party apps to be able to access your G Suite data. And here's what you can do. My recommendation is that you create a whitelist of trusted apps and limit the access of all other apps to your G Suite data. On this page, what you can see, these are permissions to access of your different individual G Suite apps. You can toggle them to disable the access one by one. But here you can see a list of all installed apps in your company. By clicking it, you will see this page where you can see what this API permission is for. And you can also go through the list and pick out the apps you want to trust once and for all. For example, Evernote. You can click here and directly trust this app and put it on your whitelist. For apps that have not been installed, you can also come to the trusted page to search for them one by one. For example, I will try to find an app here for iOS. you can whitelist your Concur app here, just like that. Okay, back to the control. After you have created a new whitelist of apps, you come here to disable the access to a variety of your G Suite apps. And you can also checkbox this one called Trust Domain Owned Apps. What this does is that any internally developed app will be automatically trusted so that admin don't have to configure it one by one. After you set up all of that, you can also tweak the user experience here. What if a user is blocked from downloading app because this app is not permitted or on the trusted list? You can tell them, okay, who to contact and put down a phone number here, for example. Then you will save all these settings and it will take effect. All these changes will propagate instantaneously in G Suite system. Okay, so that concludes my presentation for the G Suite security apps, and I will bring Susan back to the stage.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. So we are at time. Just want to summarize what we've talked about here today, because we threw a lot into this presentation. You know, if there's a message to take home, right, there are 4 pillars around this concept, or what I saw, the phenomenon of trust, right? We want to make sure that your expectations are met with your experiences. And we do that with hardcore engineering and by attracting the best and brightest security engineers in the world. We want to make sure that you're able to verify everything that we say we do. We want to make sure that you have transparency into what we do with your data, and that you have the controls necessary to manage your fate in the cloud. All of those things come together. When you put all of our solutions together, these are principles that don't apply just to one product or another. These are principles that apply to everything at Google Cloud. We're honored to have you here at Google Next. Thank you all for coming. And please feel free, if you have any questions afterward, I'm happy to stick around and answer for a few minutes. So thank you all very much.